Great afternoon to you, wonderful people. Welcome to this Monday edition of I Said What I Said. Thank y'all so very, very much for choosing to be a part of the conversation. As always, your input is valued. It is certainly appreciated. Anything you want to add to the conversation, feel free to do so. We will read through as many of your comments as possible while we go through the show. We would kindly request you please take a quick second to share the broadcast, share it on your personal page, share it even within your personal network with absolutely anyone that you think would add value to or find value in this particular conversation. We welcome them to be a part of it because we believe that the more like-minded individuals we can get to be a part of the conversation, the better the opportunities we have of reaching those aforementioned solutions. So please, if you would take a quick second to share the broadcast. Again, this is I Said What I Said. It is intellectual thuggery at its absolute finest. My name is Herb. His name is Tu. Herb, that's me.
That's you, Herb.
Tu, how about that?
I'm Tu.
What's happening, good brother?
I'm blessed and highly favored family. How you?
Man, if I was doing any better, I'll sell myself, man. I'm feeling really, really good. Summertime shot is upon us. The city is alive and bustling. As always, the population seems to double around this time of the year, and that's not because of tourism. It's because the natives come out of hibernation. And so everybody's outside. There's a lot of things going on. Trying to get back to the city is fully open. We're in phase 5 now, right? So everything is back fully open. Not enough time for us to have, some of our summertime shy staples like house picnic, silver room, block party, those type of things. But we still gonna have some things going on, and especially for the sake of this conversation, Juneteenth is coming up, man. It's Saturday, Juneteenth, and for the past 2 years, man, the energy around Juneteenth has been different than I ever remember it being in my lifetime. I'm really, really proud of that. Really, really excited about it. I, like most people, spent most of my life, relatively ignorant about Juneteenth. I mean, I knew what it was, but in terms of being intentional about celebrating and spreading education about it, that wasn't something that I was doing for the majority of my life. But for the past few years, the energy around it has been very, very different. And leading into it this year, there's so many things going on around the city. So I'm very, 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 very much so looking forward to the actual day. But also looking forward to some of the people that we're going to talk to that are instrumental in putting on some of those things.
Absolutely. We got a packed show today.
Yeah.
Right. Some of the Chicago favorites, a lot of the Chicago intellectual class. But getting back just to the construct of the concept of Juneteenth. I thought
we were talking to TJ Crawford.
Well, I said intellect.
That's what I thought we were talking to TJ.
That's my boy. We got to be nice. But look, back to the point, though. Last year we started. Well, I don't want to say we started. But several of our peer group have been celebrating Juneteenth for probably like the last 10 years.
Right.
But last year kind of exploded. And one of the main events that we did was the Juneteenth car caravan.
Yeah.
And I know me and you have this conversation often, but it was kind of a revolutionary experience, right? It was almost like it
was unlike anything I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, me too, brother. I liken it to when I went to the Million Man March.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
When I was at the march, there was this moment when I just, had this moment of clarity. And it was just like, the energy was just different.
Sure.
You just felt different. There was something in the air. And I kind of had a similar feeling around the car caravan last year. So I can't wait to see what takes place this year around Juneteenth.
That thing was absolutely bananas, man. And I know I was just giving TJ a hard time, but huge shout out to him for putting that thing together last year and for what it turned out to be. You talking about cars stretched for miles, like literally for miles, cars stretched, red, black, and green flags flying out the cars. So much love, so much good energy going all the way from the west side, all the way back out to the Hunters through downtown. Like it was again, unlike anything I've ever seen before. And so again, that kind of energy continues to permeate around Juneteenth. You're starting to see more and more events that are popping up. And inevitably when that happens, you get some people, trying to jump in, trying to take credit for things that maybe they don't deserve credit for. But more so than being upset about that, for me personally, I'm just excited that more people want to be involved and be intentional about, celebrating such a historic day in Black history.
I do as well, man. We oftentimes argue about having to understand the values, right? Of creating a Black value structure.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of how we fail in that measure is because we don't, in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, we've not really defined what is Black culture.
True.
Right. So part of the Juneteenth celebration that we're talking about, and some of the guests are going to speak about, is also implementing the idea called Black Culture Week, where we're taking the onus to really define Black culture for ourselves. So, without further ado, I think it's time that we introduce our guests.
Let's do it, man. We got a lot of them. Let's bring them in. First of all, let's bring in the brother who has been instrumental in a lot of things we've been talking about, man. He is the one and only good brother TJ Crawford. TJ, what's happening, bro?
What's good, y'all? How y'all?
Oh man, regular, just hanging out,
highly
man.
favored.
Feeling good, man.
That's Teddy Pendergrass. That ain't even TJ.
He got the Ron Isley beard going, man. I'm telling you.
First of all, Ron Isley got the TJ beard going on.
That's true. You did have it first. I give you credit for that. You did have it first.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's a good look, my brother. It's a good look.
I didn't have no choice. It went this way at 35. I tell people I went to the mountaintop, came back with a Moses moment, and it's been that way ever since. You know.
The comments is going crazy already. It's all already see. Ooh, we the beard.
It's gonna be a lot of that.
I'm not quite Zaddy status, but you know, if you need me to play that role,
Dad, dog, don't you ever say Zaddy again in your life?
You heard him.
I'm gonna fully disown you if you ever say Zaddy again in your life.
He tried it.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good.
It is what it is, man. Listen, man, a lot of things going on this weekend. Why don't you go ahead and let us know about some of the things that are in place and what we can look forward to in this particular conversation as well.
I think we want to bring in a commissioner for you all to have this conversation back and forth, right? So bring in a commissioner, brother. Commissioner, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing wonderful, man. How about yourselves?
Blessed and highly favored, man. Blessed and highly favored.
Appreciate you taking
Look,
the time.
I'm gonna tell y'all up front, I can't do nothing but tell the truth. Because this morning they sweated the truth out of both me and TJ.
They sweated the truth out of y'all. I've never heard that expression in my life.
We was burning up on the stage, man.
Hey, man, we didn't get, well, at least I didn't get the opportunity to fully watch the whole flag raising ceremony. But tell us about the flag raising ceremony, Black Culture Week, and how we plan to celebrate Juneteenth.
I'm gonna yield to brother
Why don't
T.
you go first?
Oh, I was gonna yield to you. Look how we such gentlemen.
I'll go if you want me to.
Go ahead.
So you know, Black Culture Week started this past June 11th. It runs through the 20th. This is the 4th year that we are celebrating Black Culture Week in earnest. Prior to this year, our theme was celebrate, commemorate, collaborate. How do you celebrate the culture and the people that created the culture, Black culture we're talking about? How do you commemorate that culture through ritual and tradition? And then how do you collaborate with others to make new contributions to the culture? So as you all know, we kick it off with a couple different events this year. We kicked it off with the Black Culture Wellness Fest this past Saturday in Garfield Park on Madison Avenue. Today, we had a flag raising ceremony downtown where Commissioner Deere was very instrumental in getting the county to pass legislation to make Juneteenth an official paid holiday in the county. Followed by the city of Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot announced today that next year, Juneteenth will be a paid holiday in the city. And we think the mayor's coming up with, the governor is going to come up with something after being spurred by the Illinois State Black Caucus to really make Juneteenth a recognized thing as well. So we're really excited about that. Right now, this is the kickoff to our conference on Black culture. So we have a full week of activities and panels that start today through Wednesday. Then on Thursday and Friday, we go live. So we'll be both live and virtual at Malcolm X College. Then on Friday afternoon, we have the citywide caravan that you spoke of earlier, Herb. We'll be leaving from Malcolm X College, going to the A. Philip Randolph Pullman Porter Museum. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, there's the 1865 Fest in Garfield Park. On Saturday, there's our traditional Juneteenth festival hosted by the Black Mall and the A. Philip Randolph Pullman Porter Museum, who are also co-sponsors along with the Black Remembrance Project and JEGNA of the caravan. But the festival will be on June 19th, Saturday, out there at the museum. And then Sunday, we having a Father's Day celebration in church at New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. But we're here with the commissioner because the commissioner and his colleagues started Juneteenth, Illinois. And when we found out about that, we were invited to be a part of the Cook County Juneteenth Planning Coalition. Myself and Lucretia Birch from the Black Remembrance Project. We found out what they were doing. We let them know what we were doing, and we decided to join arms. So now we are doing the Juneteenth Illinois Black Culture Week, which is the actual sponsor for the conference and the work that's going on Monday through Friday. And we look forward to building, on this for forevermore. So with that, I want to pass the mic to Commissioner Deere and let him give his perspective and speak more to our collaboration and contributions around the celebration of Juneteenth.
So much, and thank you, Brother TJ. It has been an honor and a delight to work with you. We've done some excellent legislative stuff, actually, over the past 4 years. And my goal has been about equity. It is about making sure Black people are included in every single element of government, private sector, what have you. And this was long before George Floyd. So I declared racism a public health crisis in Cook County 2 years ago, then took it to NACO and the National Association of County Officials and passed it there as well. And so Juneteenth was just a follow-up, and only a follow-up from that, because this is about equity for Black people. So Brother Stanley Moore, who's also a commissioner, and I passed Juneteenth on December 17th, 2020 as a county holiday. I'm thankful for President Pretwinkle. And then we began to engage in how we wanted to celebrate Juneteenth. And that is very, very important. I have a sister named Winona Redmond, who is over Win-Win Communication. We began talking about this. And then I was introduced to Brother TJ, Alderman Maria Haddon. I had some of my colleagues from the county board. I was introduced also to Lucretia, and we decided to do a joint effort. Guess what and why? Because Black people should be working together anyway, right? We should be working together. And I'm not talking about no equality. And I jump on anybody cases that's talking about equality. I don't want no equality, because equality is just getting a slice of the pie today.
Tell the truth.
Equity is about getting your slice of the pie today, but then getting some back pay. I want some back pay. I can't be equal with you today until we deal with the issues that are paramount from way back when. Period. And so we're working on that. And at the county level, we've created a $100 million equity fund to really deal with this. I'm making sure that we're getting contracted with, and two, as African Americans. And I want to thank Brother TJ for the Black Culture Week, for bringing that to Juneteenth, Illinois. JuneteenthIllinois.com is a hub. And the goal was to have as many Juneteenth celebrations and it to be a one-stop shop. We're going to build on that, okay? But Juneteenth and Black Culture Week is important because we're starting it out now, today. And we want to welcome you all, Brother TJ and I, to Juneteenth and Black Culture Week, Juneteenth, Illinois and Black Culture Week, because it is important that you know that it is African-American brothers who are working together. We talk so much about how we not working together. Well, we working together and for a common goal. I believe that we can all be very, very successful, but we got to believe that we can. And education, neutral, is either liberating or oppressing. It either set you free or put you into bondage. We're trying to set some folks free. We're doing that Monday through Wednesday virtually. We're doing it in person Thursday and Friday. Come on out, log on to these. We're talking good stuff. Again, I want to say, Brother TJ, it has been a pleasure. We had never met each other. We rolling like rubber and glue, and man, there's more to come. God bless you.
You know, Commissioner Deere, I think, with Chicago, the city of Chicago, Cook County, and the state of Illinois, I think it's only right that, we kind of spearhead the movement towards celebrating and being intentional about Juneteenth. I look around the city of Chicago, the county of Cook, and it is the blackest place in terms of leadership in this country. We've got a Black mayor. We've got a Black state's attorney. We got a Black chief of police. We got the Black caucus. We've got the Cook County board president. All these people are Black, right? So theoretically, we should be at the forefront of spearheading these types of movements. We should. For whatever reason, it's taking us a bit of time, and you got community leaders and citizens like TJ Crawford, like a Tucson Warner, that are pushing these things, yes. and those voices are finally being heard, and you're starting to see some of the fruits of that labor. And I think that it's only right that happens here and then spreads out across the country. That's right. You're absolutely correct, and that is our intent, and that is this movement to make sure that we can do that. And guess what? We can't do it by ourselves, because guess what? You got haters out there. And what they're trying to do is get us to disembark, if you will. They're trying to put a break in the chain, because if too many of us get together and talk about educating, man, folks start getting scared. Well, I'm going to tell you here today, I ain't scared.
Commissioner, as long as we still rolling like rubber and glue, we ain't got to worry about no haters, man.
That's what I'm talking about. My man.
We ain't never worried about no haters, bro.
My man.
Rubber and glue.
That was definitely a West Side saying.
Okay.
You understand?
No doubt. Yeah.
I found out in a very short time that Commissioner Dare got a bunch of them, right?
Yeah.
And I want to lift up Commissioner Dare in his work, not just as a commissioner, but the things that led up to this work, right? So he's been a community activist, he's been a community advocate, but he's also a clinician who spent his time really working to help heal Black folks and have a positive impact on the mental health on individuals, families, and communities. And I know that undergirds his work. And that's the similar vein in which I approach the work. So I just really want to appreciate that, lift that up, because we know that health and wellness and the health of the mind is where a lot of the stuff that we deal with as Black folks begins, right? How we feel and how we think and how we approach our daily lives manifest itself in the physical, from the things that we eat, from the places we are, from the stress that we hold on to and are not able to get rid of. You know, the way that we approach these things, thinking about them, first starts in our mind and with our mental health, which is directly tied to our physical health. And Commissioner Dare has already laid the path that I hope to follow on the professional side of things as well. In addition to the celebration of culture in Juneteenth. So he's been a champion. I'm happy to be working with him. We're all happy to be working with him, and we expect even great things to come in the future.
Let me just say one more thing, brothers.
Sure, go right
and that
ahead.
is, I said that this morning when I was on the stage burning up with the mayor and brother TJ. This Juneteenth, it is about June 19th, but it's much more than that. My vision and TJ's vision is much larger than that. Juneteenth is every single day. And I want to make sure that even with Juneteenth, Illinois, we're not just coming together for Juneteenth. We should be coming together with something for Black people quarterly. And then after we get it quarterly, we start doing it monthly. Because when we get to Juneteenth next year, we should have a report out about what we have accomplished as a people here in Illinois. How many more Black people actually getting contracts? How many more Black people don't have food insecurities anymore? How have we impacted health equities, right? How many people no longer have to deal with diabetes in our community because they don't have appropriate health care? So we should be coming back and reporting back on what impact we've had, with the goal that in 5 years, we would have done some serious damage.
No, you're absolutely right. And I like the idea of talking about it, as a daily thing, and not just a once a year thing or a once in a while thing or Black History Month, but it being a daily thing. And when we talk about it being a daily thing, I think it's really, really important to examine the messaging and the things that we intake on a daily basis. So you're talking about music, you're talking about message, you talk about culture, all those types of things. All of those things are impacting, how we view ourselves and how we relate to each other and how we relate to our communities on a daily basis. And so I know that's a focal point of this conversation. So TJ, I'll turn this thing over to you. I mean, we're happy to continue facilitating the conversation, but I want you to be able to bring in the conversation as you see fit in terms of the guest and when you want to bring them in.
I think you should bring the guest in now. I think myself and Commissioner Dare are going to fade to the back. I just want to celebrate you and her. Y'all been doing y'all thing.
That's what's up.
We've been brothers for a very long time.
Yes, sir.
Tucson been rocking with me since I came back home in early 2000. So this is what y'all do. I'm happy to be a part. I'm happy to see y'all evolution, and I want y'all to do y'all thing. Y'all have the talent, the intellect, the mindset, and the savvy to make this be what it needs to be. So go ahead and do what y'all do.
No
Say
doubt.
less, my brother. Say less, my brother. It's an absolute pleasure. That is what I said. That's what I said. I said what I said. That's what it's for. That is why we started this thing, to have important conversations about Black people, Black community, Black culture. And so we happy to share this platform and be able to host such an important panel discussion with so many phenomenal people that's doing so many great things in the community. So without any further ado, can we start to bring in our panelists for the discussion? Can I shout you out, man? I know how you like to be in the background, and I want to shout out my one of my favorite people on the face of this planet, man. I like to call him Superman. His real name is Brian Gorman, man. Brian Gorman is instrumental in everything. I told Brown today. I said, look, I'm gonna stop making any decisions without calling you first, like that. What
B
I'm
is definitely the man. B saved our life today, right? And then we've seen the comments too, like where you all broadcasting from, because this is not a normal broadcast spot, but it may become a normal broadcast spot very soon.
Okay,
we're trying to figure everything out, man. So this is we're gonna make up a name for this. What y'all got a name for this already? So we're at the Intel Music Group studio, but we're not going to call it that at all.
Intel kind of works. Anyhow, man, I just want to shout out Brian Gorman for being a phenomenal dude. Most of y'all know who Brian Gorman is. You probably crossed paths with him in some way, shape, or form at some point in time, but he's definitely holding it down for us today. So appreciate you, Brian, as always, my brother. As y'all see on the screen, joining myself, TJ, and Commissioner Deere, Dr. Obari Cartman is here, as is Brother Kwabena Rasuli is here. Brother Kwabena, what's happening, man? It's been a minute. You still muted, my brother.
Take yourself off mute, brother.
There it is. Yeah, it's good. Everything's good, man. Good to be with you, brothers. Everybody I know, man. Good to see Brother Gorman's there too, except for the Commissioner. Obari, good to see you again. Dr. Obari, it's been a while.
Yeah, man. Got a who's who of people in here today. So I appreciate all of y'all. Dr. Obari, what's going on, brother?
What's happening, buddy? Good to see everybody. How y'all doing today?
Everything is good, man. Everything is good. I've seen you more recently than I've seen Brother Kwabena, man, but it's always good to catch up with you and chop it up with you about some of these important issues for sure.
Always a pleasure, bro.
Indeed. So, Brother Kwabena, man, listen, you've been on this mission for a very, very long time about messaging, specifically in music, and what that looks like, the impact that has on us on a daily basis and on a long-term basis as well. Tell people a little bit about your work and why you find it so important.
DJ, in hip hop, there's everybody knows, not everybody knows the elements of hip hop, but one of the most important is the DJ, and that's where I fit in to hip hop. Been DJing since hip hop came to be, pretty much. I guess when it came to be commercially, and just to see the change in it, just to see how devastating and derogatory hip hop, I guess, how it's pushed commercially to the masses of our people, how it's being used as a weapon against us. And so a long time ago, back in the 90s, actually, when I was in college, we used to do a review of music, a music review for the school paper at Southern University called the Weekly Wrap Up. And we started getting critical of the messages in the music that were demeaning, derogatory, and just horrific. And that was a point when we had conscious hip hop. And so when I was DJing, I would just play conscious hip hop. I would play Gangsta, the edited version. But after that, it would be Love's Gonna Get You from KRS-One, In the Ghetto, and some fun stuff, some LL, some Mo D, Knowledge is King, and we partied to that. And then it flipped on us, and again, it's being used as a weapon against us. And now today, it's just so horrible that we really have to address it. And so I'm with the Clear the Airways project, and our goal is basically just to deal with the radio stations and the poisonous programming that the radio stations constantly push on African children and youth, because that's mainly who listens to these particular stations. They're geared towards our children and youth. A lot of those don't listen to it, can't stand to listen to it, but our children do. And we have to address that.
But I got a question. Sometimes I wonder if it's the case of the tail wagging the dog, or if just the medium in which we, because like you said, when conscious hip hop existed, conscious hip hop still exists, but maybe not in the platforms in which we're tuned into. And I wonder if that's a reflection of the genre itself or reflection of where the people actually are.
No, I think, because we do a conscious hip hop show out here in Gary. We've been doing it for 21 years, and we don't have enough time to play all the good conscious hip hop that's out. There's so many artists who refuse, even though they know they won't get played on mainstream media. They won't get the love that mainstream media gives us negativity. They still refuse to disrespect their people, call for their people to be murdered, call for their daughters to be strippers and harlots and hoes, and they still making great music. It's just not getting to play. We had speech on with us yesterday. We had a piece called, we had hearings calling into question the music industry's harm that they're doing to Black people and the weaponization of hip hop as a weapon against the people. And so Speech was on there with us, and he was talking about You know, the music he makes, there's certain algorithms and they have where their music not only don't get played on the radio, but in a lot of these other outlets, it's blocked. It's blocked because we get a hold of some of his music. He has still come up with some great music, and not just him. So many other artists. So we agree, the conscious music is out there. As a matter of fact, we get a lot of the conscious music we play from the youth. So the youth share that with us. So the youth, it's not like they're being force fed this garbage. It's being force fed to them.
So you in your estimation, it is the music kind of leading the behavior more so than the music being reflective of the behavior.
Yeah, even one of the panelists yesterday when we were talking, one of the educators talked about how, you know, we say life imitates art or art imitates life, and he said it goes both ways. Paris, the rapper, said this a while ago. It goes both ways. So we think we know that it goes both ways. But if you constantly hear on Easter Sunday, right before that, the sister who's an educator out here was taking her son to school, and he wanted to turn the radio on. So I guess they turned on GCI, and she was hearing the song "Cry Baby," and it almost made her cry. Listen to the lyrics of the song. So I looked at the video, saw the Toy Story type children's video with this pornography all in it. And then I looked up how many times the iHeart station in Indianapolis played it. They played it like 13 times within like a 14-hour period on Easter Sunday. And so they program it. And while I was looking at that, I saw another song called Beatbox. And I didn't know the title. I'd heard the name because I do monitor this crap sometime. And Beatbox, as you know, is a song straight up about shooting and killing people. Straight up, the Drago make him beatbox. Hit him in the spine, knock his dreads off. That's in the chorus of the song by the rapper's name is Spot 'em, Got 'em. Mm-hmm. I spot him and I got him.
No, I feel you completely. And I'll be honest with you. I listened to some of that music, right? And I listened to it. And for me, at this point in my life, I don't think it impacts me in the way that's going to make me want to go shoot up a block and discriminate or nothing like that. But I try to hold myself to, I don't know, I want to be accountable to it in a greater way to understand that, okay, maybe it's not impacting me like that, but I know for sure that it is impacting a lot of our youth in that way. And me listening to that music supports that artist and continues to allow that music to kind of spread and grow and expand. And so I'm trying to get better at it. I'm not quite there yet, Brother Quabbin, I got to be honest with you. But I also kind of come with this thing at a perspective of, this is the reality that a lot of these young people are living. This is their reality. And we talk about people being artists. A lot of artists really just use their art, whether it's painting, whether it's poetry, or whether it's hip hop, to kind of tell their stories. And I struggle to understand, to figure out where are they kind of just telling their stories and where are they just putting out, you know, hate music for the benefit, for their own personal benefit financially. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
I understand what you're saying. I just got back from Mama Land. I was with a sister. Well, I talked to this sister from Chicago, and we were talking about this whole issue of hip hop. And she was saying where she heard some information about Gucci Mane and his crew. He had to make sure that you have these crimes in your background, you've already committed these crimes before you even become part of his crew. And so I mentioned how many times they play songs like Cry Baby and Up and Beatbox and Back in Blood. This is not the reality of the masses of our people. Definitely, if you look at the many times they play it in rotation, they're pushing that on our people. They're brainwashing us, they're programming us with that toxicity in order to make this more. It's like, again, the life imitating art piece. It's unbalanced, bro. And they know exactly what they are doing. They know exactly what they're doing. That's why they do it. That's when, you know, some people sometimes ask us too about censorship, and you guys calling about censorship. And they're the ones who are censoring the music. If it's not talking about that crap, like the sister said about Gucci Mane, they censor them. They don't play it. You can't get my crew if you're not talking about that.
Sure, no, I understand that, and I think now is as good a time as any to bring AK into the conversation. AK from the legendary group Do or Die. AK, when your musical career has spanned the gamut for a very, very long time, and so I've got all kind of music, uplifting, Black Power type stuff, but also real street stories and that type of music as well. What do you come in on trying to find that balance, and how has your thought evolved on it, you know, as you've grown as a person?
Well, you know, with the music itself, you have to understand, like, you have these young guys putting out music. So They only going off of what they see, just as well as we was going off what we see. So now when you go off of what you see, you get among some real OGs, some people who can give you some real reality information. You begin to change the narrative of your story. And that's what it's all about, being able to change the narrative of your story, man. If you can't, if you can't get around people who will help you change that mentally, then you'll really continue to say the same thing over and over again.
Dr. Obari, where do you come in on this?
Yeah, I'm curious, Obari, because I mean, you work a lot with the youth, right? And so you see a lot of the psychological effects and impacts of their day-to-day experience, but also the things that they digest intellectually. How do you feel it's impacting them on a daily basis and then a long term as well?
I think it's very similar to the impact that men as models have on the young people. And I think that in the same way that men in general tend to perform a very narrow version of our authentic selves, and that's what the young people see. I think that the hip hop, the corporatized version of it, does that on the mass level. And so, what I mean by that is, there is an extent that I believe that the artists are keeping it real, describing their realities, just using poetry and rhythm to explain what they see and what they feel. But it's such a narrow view of that. So like, even if you got street tales and you lit a violence and you shot some folk and you write about it, like that's a part of it. But all of them also had a breadth of experiences that don't show up in their music. They be having kids and they be having sick grandmothers and they be grieving and and sometimes even when they do talk about those things in their music, which I'm seeing more and more, I'm seeing more young artists have a display level of emotional intelligence that I think is brilliant. Those still aren't the songs that get the radio play. So there's these layers of rigidity and the narrowing of focus in the types of messages that get repeated. And I think that's a part of what Baba Kwame and I saying is programming. When something is happening over and over again has a certain angle and it's deliberate, that's different than we just telling stories about what happens and then sharing those stories in real life. Like that's not what's going on in the corporate sort of world of media and sharing. And I think it impacts them. I think that impacts young people and Brother AK said it very clearly, like what you see, what your reality is, shapes who you become, who you see is possible, what you can vision for yourself and for your community is influenced by the things that your perspective. And so if they only been seeing a narrow perspective of what a man is and does by the men in their life, and then even narrower based on the music that gets repeated over and over again. Anytime you repeat something over and over again, you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, I'm a brilliant God, I'm a genius and I can accomplish anything, right? If you say that over and over again, that will become true to you. You will manifest that in your world. But if you put in earbuds in the morning and you got these messages just literally getting drilled into your mind, that impacts you. Like that shapes your worldview. It shapes how you see yourself and the world. And if that's tailored, if that's constructed by an enemy of our people, we got to pay attention to that. That's the issue. Not hip hop is broke. It's the same enemy that we've always had has used hip hop, to Baba Kwame's point, to weaponize it against us. And then our young people are ingesting, regurgitating, repeating, and then manifesting that in their life. Like if this is, we could call it entertainment all we want, but if it was not congruent with the actual real life traumas that we experience, if we weren't really dealing with mass incarceration and the violence and addictions and the harm against women and all the stuff that becomes the problems in the music, if those did not represent themselves in the reality of the community, then you play whatever you want, dance to it, have fun, kick it. If people were seeing it just like watching a movie and there was just people playing characters, but they didn't internalize that as that's what cool is or that's what desirable is. They're shaping what we want and what we like. And anytime that's happening to the masses of young Black people, any adult that cares about who we are has got to pay attention to that and do what we can to disrupt that.
I fully understand where everybody's coming from, right? But I just want to play devil's advocate. When you start looking at the numbers, the real data, right? And specifically per Obari's comment, he said it's a very narrow view of masculinity being represented. But when you look at just the sheer data, right? The sheer data says dual income earning black households, that's dual income earning black households, have a less than $60,000 median, right? The data says that less than 2% of the black population work in the private sector. So if we are employed, 98% of us are employed by government entities, i.e. postman, i.e. policeman, i.e. garbage man,
Transportation.
i.e. labor intensive, low level employment, right? So at the end of the day, we live in America, right? And America is a materialistic country. It just is what it is, the very narrative, in my opinion, right? And I think the way they consume music today is different too. So when we start talking about the mass media companies or the large media conglomerates, and I guess at some level YouTube has become a large media conglomerate as well, but it's per your discretion. So at some levels they're seeking out this kind of entertainment, right? And it goes back to what Obari said, it's what they see. But it's what they see as a reflection of the entirety of the scope. I think the entire value set is based in materialism.
Sure.
So to pin that specifically on our community, and I get what Obari was saying when it has such a deficit.
Sure.
When we have so many other deficits, it becomes overbearing per se. But how do you separate yourself from the entirety and act as a nuanced kind of group or a specific kind of group when the entire American paradigm is based on materialism?
So we talking Juneteenth, and the opposite of Juneteenth, the opposite of fighting to determine that we have to celebrate our own victories within the system, is to say that this is America. America is what it is. We might as well just submit to that. So we need to fly the red, white, and blue. We need to conform. We need to assimilate. And if that's just what it is, then that's where we are. We're going to decide to be here. We pay taxes. I got an ID. My last name, Carmen. I'm speaking English. That's just what it is. But what art allows us to do is to create a vision within a vision to disrupt that, what we are taught, and to provide an opportunity to see ourselves different. And part of that, part of the power and the responsibility in that for Black people specifically is to say, yeah, America is materialistic, but does that serve us? America is materialistic at the expense of my people. Should I support that, or should I challenge that? And hip hop was created as a medium to challenge that, and then was co-opted by that same system to present itself in alignment with the materialism and the dominance and the violence. When that happens, it's not a go along, get along play. We have to disrupt that, because it's a part of the system that is presented to us. Because we better than that, always have been. We got to let our young people see that, and if we submit to it, if we conform to it, if we let them win, then we ain't gonna have no fighting chance.
I feel that, and I want to send it to Brother Quabanon. Brother Quabanon, I want you to know, for whatever reason, our connection to yours is causing that feedback that we're hearing. So we muting your mic when you're not talking, but I don't want to stop you from being able to jump in when you want. So when you want to jump in, just raise your hand, let me know. I'll definitely bring you right in. But for whatever reason, our connection to yours is causing a little bit of that feedback. But go ahead, brother.
A couple things I just wanted to talk about. When we talk about the public sector, it also includes education. And, we have education that's also public sector in terms of these jobs that we have, and we see them just destroying the school systems all over. And Gary is the first city in Indiana to be taken over by the state in terms of the school system. We have one high school now, after having about 8 or 9 when I moved here. One high school, the rest of them are charter schools and what have you. So this is all part of the same attack, and it's all part of the culture attack that we're under. And culture is everything, but a major aspect of people's culture is their music. And so when we talk about what we see, it's also what we hear. Say I'm a rapper, I want to be a rapper.
Sure.
And I do listen to the radio periodically, because people still listen to the radio, not as much, of course, as they used to. But if all I hear on the radio is ignorant materialism, stripping, killing, drug slanging, and alcohol abuse, I'm gonna make music like that. And so, and also we got to understand too that I would always talk about this nationally about the stations in Chicago. The only two mass media stations that target young Africans are both European owned. And then they'll get on me in New York. Same thing here. In other cities, same thing here. So it's all over. Even though we do have Radio 1 spewing that poison to the masses of our people in cities in North Carolina, Indianapolis, and other areas also. But I'm telling y'all, this stuff is crazy. I want to just give an example of how we act out some of this stuff.
Sure.
So there's a song called Beatbox that we mentioned earlier. I think Pooh Shiesty mentions how he's 3 deep in the car, he's in the backseat, whatever, and they got 10 bodies. A couple of weeks ago, I don't know if y'all saw the video, there's 3 brothers that get out of the car in Miami, and in a matter of 10 seconds, they got 23 bodies. And it's on video. There's a video of them brothers hopping out this car. 2 of them got assault rifles, one of them got a gun, and they just go crazy shooting and hop right back in the car. And it's less than 10 seconds. Then there's another video of brothers and sisters just simply outside the club waiting to get in. And then they're not even scrambling. They like falling down. And you see that, and they superimpose the brothers going out of the camera, doing the shooting, going back to the camera, and them standing there waiting to get in the club and then getting shot down. 2 brothers died. A sister suffered for about a week, and then she died. This happened in Miami. And so that's the same thing that this dude said in the song. Now, the number 1 song at the same time was a song called Back in Blood.
That's my joint.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie to you.
And, you know, I ain't got nowhere to go. I done shot up everywhere they was. That's in the chorus. In Chicago, they playing that crap. And so what happens after we hear that this is the number 1 song in the country, you have Pooh Shiesty shoot somebody, a security guard, at the strip club in Miami. He's still locked up right now.
Lil Durk is also on that song, and Lil Durk's brother got killed outside the strip club last week.
That was the next statement. His brother also got killed in the strip, coming out of a strip club.
Yeah.
Harvey.
Yeah.
So, and the stuff is killing us. And those are people we know. We have people dying. There was a video we showed. It said 200 rappers who died in 2020. 200.
Sure.
There was a few that died from natural causes or whatever, like ecstasy, like our brother from the Roots, like MF Doom. But the vast majority of them were for gunshots, stabbings, drug overdose. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that it goes back to the point that Tucson was making, and I think it goes back to capitalism, right? I think that they are striving, so intensely towards capital that all these other things are just acceptable collateral damage. I think they're willing to pay that price for the opportunity to become a rap star, the opportunity to be able to change their circumstances financially. And I think that we continue to see that play out. I think for me, in my estimation, it really is going to come down to, are we willing to turn our back to capitalism, at least in a way that doesn't allow it to influence every single decision that we make? I understand that we live in America. I understand that this is a capitalist system and that you got to have some resources. I understand that piece. But for it to be the main motivating factor behind every decision we make, I think that is detrimental to our development. I think it's detrimental to our health. And I think that if we don't change that as a collective, then I don't think we're going to see that change in terms of how our young people go about trying to get to that capital. I want to bring in Sheila Brown into the conversation. Sheila Brown, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
We are doing quite well. We truly, truly appreciate your presence and your input on this conversation.
Absolutely.
Where do you come in on this entire discussion?
Well, I completely understand everything you're saying, and I certainly agree with much of what you're saying from the standpoint of you have to see it to be it, but also that in this capitalistic world, we have to kind of give people what they want in order for them to invest in us, and then for us to make money on the other side of that. And where do you start to draw the line and say, I will not put capital in front of values or anything of that nature? I think it's hard for most artists and so forth. I haven't done much in the music world, but I think that's probably even more prevalent at that time. But on our side, it's in television production, it's the same discussion of, what roles you play and what they say and how they perpetrate certain stereotypes and so forth. But I'm excited at the aspect of there being so many avenues now for us to create content and to be organically involved in the things that get put out by us from a television production standpoint or creatively. as well as maybe for some in music. So I think that it is systemic, the things that are happening, and it's not going to change overnight. But us having a louder voice and a bigger share of the decision-making process obviously helps in that way.
So when I look at hip hop in general, let's specifically, I'm going to specifically point out like Jay-Z. And I'm going to say Jay-Z on purpose.
Because he's the GOAT.
Because Jay-Z has kind of elevated himself into the elite class of into the class of black elites, right? He's celebrated everywhere. He's on every platform with everybody that we champion. He's at the White House with Barack Obama. He's everything. But Jay-Z specifically has a line where he says, truthfully, I want to rap like common sense, but I made $5 million and I ain't rap like common sense, right? Same guy sells drugs. Same guy really sold drugs. Same guy sells drugs in his music. Talks about every death and destruction. But then at the elite classes of our populace, he's celebrated. Because at the core of this, that's what we want. Capital is what we value. So from my vantage point, I hear you and I agree with everything you all are absolutely saying. I do. I swear to God, I do. Right? But for me, when we attack these young brothers, for me, it feels like low-hanging fruit. For me, they seem like the product of the problem and not the problem.
Where are you getting that we're attacking the young brothers, though? I mean,
who else is rapping? Who else is rapping, bro? Give me 5 white artists that's relevant in our community.
5 white. We're attacking. We're dealing with the industry. We're dealing with those who push and promote. Did we know if these even if they listen to us and say we're gonna go conscious now, or if they get killed in some of these fratricidal playoffs that are going on, or if they go to jail like Bobby Schmurder, they'll come up with somebody else. So we really don't focus so much on attacking the artists. We don't really let them off the hook, but we don't attack the artists. We attack the industry that pushes and promotes them, because they'll easily find somebody else out there who like y'all been talking about, who want to come up, who will make the same sort of poison that's being pushed out there right now. They are being used. Jay-Z is but a well-paid token tool of European domination. So Jay-Z, this is what Jay-Z can do in one of his last albums that everybody loved. He can drop 64 M-bombs in the song. But when he simply said Jewish, the ADL got on his ass. Now you tell me now.
But that's a great point, though, Brother Kwabena. The ADL got on his ass. We celebrate him. That's the point I'm making. We celebrate him. The ADL said we're not having that shit. My argument is us black folks celebrate him.
He is celebrated in mass media, and he's force-fed on us that we celebrate him. Everybody, I know a lot of people who don't dig Jay-Z like that. There's a lot to do because he's pushed out so much in mass media. But you understand, like you said earlier, he can't even make a song today without talking about slinging drugs. You know, so it's this whole piece. But I was thinking about like Drake. Drake was the artist of the decade from 2010 to 20, whatever. Artist of the decade. One of his early songs, or kind of early song, was starting from the bottom. At the end, almost every line he drops an N-bomb. We say take that N-bomb out and put in kike, put in faggot, put in any other derogatory term about anybody else, and he wouldn't be able to get away with it.
I think the point that you was making is that we don't view that as a derogatory term, whereas they will.
Even better. I think you're making my point, right? I think what you see is a collectivism around a value set based in lineage, legacy, and identity, right? The ADL says, no. You're not going to disrespect us like that. We're not having it. But what we say is, come perform at the White House. The music didn't change. And there was a black power base that said, hey, come perform at the White House.
The music didn't change. What you mean?
Niggas in every one of them records you talked about, right? And he performed at the White House under the black administration, right? So if we look at the ADL as a power base, and the power base that says, hey, we're not having it. Hey, we have a certain level of respect for our community. When we have a black president and a black administration, that represents a power base as well. But instead of saying we're not having it, we said we embrace it. I ain't going back to the conversation of this being low-hanging fruit.
Many of us are saying we're not having it. Many of us are saying we're not having it, but they keep force feeding it on us. And so that's one of the struggles we have, brother. We cannot continue to allow those N-bombs to be dropped. Because I was just thinking earlier today when I was out in the garden that one particular word is the anchor for all the other negativity that's in the music that's dropping N-bombs because it's dehumanizing. It's he ain't number the N, so I can take his life. His woman ain't number the NB, so I can disrespect her and treat her like that. That one word, it anchors a lot of this ignorance that's in that music. And you're right, that's something we have to deal with. We've been too tolerant of us. Malcolm taught us years ago that who taught you to hate yourself? And that's why they push. One of the things Bob Law said, they make sure that these rappers drop those N-bombs in these songs to assure their European handlers, their European listeners, that they're not talking about raping and gang raping and disrespecting their daughters. They're not talking about shooting and killing their sons. That's why they make sure they drop so many N-bombs in this music.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best examples I've heard is I can't remember what song it is at the moment, but it's a Rick Ross song. And in the verse, Rick Ross is talking about everything Rick Ross always talks about, selling dope and killing black people. But also in that verse, he talks about date rape. And when he mentions date rape, now it's a problem, right? Because you can sell dope and shoot people in the black community all day. When you talk about date rape, now you crossing over to other demographics of people that could be victimized by this thing, and that's unacceptable. And so Reebok pulls their $50 million sponsorship deal with Rick Ross. The song gets pulled. All these type of things happen. So I understand completely what you're saying in terms of how the industry is kind of at the forefront of this, and they're making these decisions about what is okay and what is not okay. But I think that, again, it's just very reflective of trying to get to capital. I don't necessarily think that if all of a sudden we started only hearing conscious rap on the airwaves, then that would be the music that the young people start to make. I don't know if that's the case, right? Perhaps it is, but I think that it really is going to boil down to us making decisions about what we are willing to do and not willing to do in pursuit of capital as a collective, right? Not on an individual basis. I know there are a lot of people who will shun the Jay-Z's of the world, but as a collective, by and large, most people are absolutely in tune with what he's talking about, right? And championing his causes. And I think that until we kind of make that change in our minds as a collective, I have to agree with Tucson that it's kind of low-hanging fruit to go at the music that's being put out, because I think it's how we all move. All of us are, at the end of the day, capitulating in such a way towards economics that is detrimental to our collective cause. I think all of us on some level do that on a daily basis. Whether we're talking about rappers, whether we're talking about people going to their 9 to 5, whether we're talking about these corporations and the things they do, capital comes before morality in almost every decision that's made in this country. And I think that it's hard for me to see music being different.
What y'all saying is, y'all, until we get rid of capitalism, we just gonna have to just deal with this.
Let's deal with that.
And one of the things Steve said, he didn't say it in our piece yesterday. He talked about how much money they made as Arrested Development. They were still making money. They were making good money from the first album. The second album came out, which was even more conscious than the first album. The record companies deep sixed it. So it's more than just about them making money. It's also about them, I believe, destroying our families. It's a genocidal psychological war on the masses of African people. That's why they push a lot of this poison too. It ain't just about making money. They made money off other Earth and Fire, other groups made plenty of money comparatively speaking. But this is more than about money. This is about destroying the psyche of the masses of our people.
Agreed.
I agree that it is more about money, and I think that's how we're going to kind of turn the corner in this conversation. We kind of want to expand this conversation because part of why we're here today is to celebrate Black Culture Week. And for me, I think the fact that we respond to that genre of music, I think the fact that we're intrigued by it is driven by capitalism. But I think the power that capitalism has over us because we lack a real cultural identity. That's my personal opinion, right? And I don't mean, and I don't want to disparage your argument or devalue your argument, but when I say, in my opinion, the reason why it's low hanging fruit until we have an identity, our identity is wrapped into the American psyche. Our identity is wrapped into the American identity, and the American identity is very shallow. It's all materialistic. So when we think about these other cultures, We also we use these terms we use these comparisons in our community all the time. Well, look at the Arabs, or look at the Chinese, or we can go down the line because we always say look at the, right? But we are the most American of Americans. We are, us and white people, right? And just like them, well, the difference between us and them is that we don't have any ownership. So their lack of cultural identity don't mean shit. But because we don't have any ownership, ours means something. And in that point, I fully agree with you that we have to be very, very focused in how we move our community forward. So I would like to get to a basic question for the entirety of the panel. And that question is, what is Black culture to you? Anybody can answer.
Dr. Obama, let's start with you.
I'll go. I mean, the irony of it is that we're talking about hip hop as the medium for this moment. Sure. And I'll quickly respond to say that I don't agree with the low hanging fruit part of this. I think that if we're talking systems analysis, we're talking global domination, or at least the attempt to. We're talking an enemy that is desiring to weaponize everything. Then that means there needs to be committees that look at all the different pieces and then come together to connect, to think about the ways in which there's themes across sort of committees. So there's somebody
100%.
dealing with the education and the ways in which they are a part of the system, and that the books are dehumanizing and brainwashing and causing harm, just like the music is. Same with the food. Somebody needs to be looking at the food desert. Somebody needs to be looking at the pollution and the waste of it. I mean, then every piece of this, because we're so powerful that it requires a system of attack. And so this topic right now is just the music. And so we're focusing on that as the place that we can reach. And I think that there's some places that we can touch and make some change. So it's like low hanging because it's accessible, but it's also low hanging because we could do this. Like, this is something we could do.
So
let me revolutionize this.
So let me put a little bit of context on the conversation that me and Tu often have about this low hanging fruit concept, right? And he and I talk about this in terms of policing in our communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am anti-police, and I'm like, let's get rid of the police. And Tu, for the most part, is on the same page with that. But he also believes that particular conversation is low-hanging fruit, right? Like police are at the very bottom rung. They're the very front line of a system that is put in place to bring about harm to our community, right? And they just at the front line. And so he's like, that's low-hanging fruit. We don't got to deal with them. We need to be dealing with up here. I'm like, nah, we got to deal with the person who got their foot on my neck, right? We got to get his foot off my neck, and then we can figure out who sent them here, right? And so that's what we mean when we say low-hanging fruit. Not to say that's not a critically important component of the whole, right?
No, so I hear police like an easy target. Right. The police are an easier target than teachers. I think sometimes teachers can do as bad, as worse harm as the police could do. Or they might not like murder you in the street, but over time you could have somebody believe they have never made a valuable contribution to the planet and not worthy. I think that kind of damage happens in schools, but you wouldn't hear a song that says F the teachers. Right. But it's easier to complain about the police, right? So I think that all of these things are fruit that is poisonous, and at whatever level it is, we got to digest it, and we got to critique it, and we got to evaluate the ways in which our people participate in this. And so I agree with Bob Quabbin on the point that, like, we ain't talking about attacking nobody. I ain't talking about attacking teachers. I'm not even talking about attacking police officers. I talk to my brothers and sisters on the force and be like, hey, just we need something different from you. I need you to distinguish yourself. I ain't saying you should quit necessarily. Sometimes I think we need more Black officers. We need more Black teachers, and we need more Black artists that are responsible about the power of their tongue. Every industry requires like more and different and better and a renewed consciousness. To go to the point about your question about what culture is to me, it really is hip hop. Like, hip hop is the in its purest form is the quintessential representation of the best of the combinations of African traditional excellence and the modern context of the American experience, of the American project, really. Us as the descendants of those that have retained, despite the harm, despite the attack, despite the violence, we've retained a sense of rhythm, of a synchronicity, the oral tradition the connection to the drum. Like these things are embedded in the elements of pure hip hop. And because of that, like that's what culture is about. Culture evolves, culture heals, culture moves, culture reflects itself, and it also improves on itself. So culture is all of that for me. And Black culture in particular has a unique brilliance because it's connected to the beginning of people on this planet. Like you can't disconnect the power of what it means to be at the center of this form of human on this planet at this time. Sure. And everything that comes through our bloodline, through our ingenuity and creative expression. So hip hop is all of that for me, which is why it has to be so protected. Like that's why it's such a critical element to think about what happens when it gets co-opted by an enemy and then used against us, because they recognize the power of the drums and music. We're talking spiritual warfare, right? We're talking psychological spiritual warfare. So like it's not light. This ain't it's not an easy fix because it's such a deep embedded kind of thing because of the cultural power and its impact, its power to be able to shape identity. Like talking about, we need to fix the cultural identity problem. We keep coming back to these chicken egg problems. Sure. How do you build cultural identity in a people? I was on a conversation with Barbara Quadman and I yesterday with speech, and I was just sitting there listening to speech talk. Like I remember speech was a part of my cultural identity development. Arrested Development enforced and gave way and gave language to and created, evoked possibilities for me to firm up my cultural identity, who I saw myself as, and my people in the world through his music, right? So hip hop has that kind of power, and culture has that power, and it's always there's a relationship. It's not who's first, it's not which is better. There's a relationship between all of these elements: the food, the language, the music, the sound, the aesthetics, in terms of and how they shape and are shaped by the things that are important to us, the things we value, the things that are meaningful to us. Culture is all of that. It's a complicated mixed pot, but it has to do, for me, with elevation. Part of our responsibility as human beings is to evolve on purpose, different than other animal species who kind of have a rote biological evolution in place. We have an intellect that makes us have to be more intentional about our evolution. And for me, culture at its purest has to do with that. So it's not just fun. It's not just staying in place. It's not just making it. It's about evolving in a way that sees where we are, but also, again, like I said before, envisions something different and better and seeks to that, like works for that. Culture for me is all of that.
Understood. Sister Sheila Brown, I would ask you the same question about culture.
I think you're still on mute.
There we go. I would add on to what Dr. Abari just said. I mean, I agree with him wholeheartedly. It's an evolution, and it's all encompassing. It isn't one thing. But the layer that I add on top of everything that he said is, when I think about our culture, I think of the tenacity of people. I think of our inability to die in a general sense, obviously not one physical person dying, sure. But, people not able to bring us down. When you look at even the pandemic, and how it really affected so many people mentally and physically and so forth. And it's not to say we haven't had our low-grade depressions over everything just slowing down around us, but we had no doubt that we will make it to the other side of that. And then what we will do to improve. I'm always looking at, how do I leave things better like my ancestors did? How do I leave things better than I found them? And I think that's kind of inherent in all of us. And it manifests itself in different ways, depending on how people, their daily lives and what that looks like for them. But in addition to what he just said, I think of, when I think of our culture, it's just that there's no stopping us.
Mm-hmm. How do you think that it's been impacted by media over the years?
I think it's been impacted the same way that you mentioned about music. If someone feeds you something, that whole theory of you have to see it to believe it. When we started saying, even back on the Cosby days, I remember the first time I saw, a father doctor and, the mother, sure. The doctor lawyer. I was amazed, because were they the first people in our culture to be that way? Absolutely not. We've had people through the generations that have had a career, but most times I was saying, good times, you know, and us living in the
it's always a struggle story
projects and so forth. So it wasn't a glorification of us being poor, but it was just a way that, you know, you're either going to move on up as the Jeffersons and now you know, are in a different world. Well, we're all in the same world, you know, and we're there. So I believe that telling stories that kept us in positions where people thought of us anyway was not necessarily as helpful, but I think it's the same way we're talking about with the capitalism. It's what sells. Did I watch the Jeffersons? Did I watch Sanford and Sons? Did I watch all of these shows that showed us in a kind of a struggling form? Absolutely. Yeah, and I identified with them. Mm-hmm. But I think it depends on who people are at their core. You know, for me, when I saw it, I saw people I could identify with, but I saw people that I wanted to strive for a bit more than that. And some people say, hey, it's, you know, that's just how it is. And that's where they land, you know. So I think media is very powerful because what you see, you believe. And it's just, you know, I talk about it in careers. If you never knew that there was a career, you never knew somebody made a living doing that, you know, your brain doesn't go there. You don't know what you don't around know. You is what influences how high you think you can fly, you know, and unfortunately, we have a lot of our youth and so forth that are in places where they can't see beyond unless it's embedded deep in them. They can't see beyond. So I'm always about putting that additional picture in front of them, you know, or intriguing them in another way and giving them thoughts that they may not have had before. And it's not because someone had us holding us down per se. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that they weren't exposed to it and their parents weren't exposed to it, you know, and so forth. So I'm always about exposure and creating pathways for people to see something different, because when you see it, you can be it.
If you are just tuning in, this is I Said What I Said alongside Tucson. My name is Herb Howard. We're absolutely thrilled to be joined by a phenomenal panel, heralded, decorated people who are talking about culture and media and the impact that media has on our culture. Huge shout out to Commissioner Dennis Deere and Brother TJ Crawford for putting together this panel and for wanting to have this discussion as we start and move through Black Culture Week leading up to Juneteenth, not only here in Chicago, but across the country as well. So thank you all so very, very much for tuning in. I see you guys' comments as well. Your input is always valued and certainly appreciated. So continue to chime in, share the broadcast. We certainly appreciate all of you here.
Before you go forward, though, I kind of want to piggyback on one of the things Ms. Brown said, because she specifically mentioned the Cosby Show with Heathcliff and Claire Huxtable. Right, Heathcliff being a doctor, Claire Huxtable being the lawyer. Right, what did they have? 5 children?
I think so.
They had 5 children that all went to elite universities and schools, and they lived in what would have been at that time probably a $4 million brownstone in Brooklyn. Right? Does that idea not feed those same aspirational ideas as a Pooh Shiesty to a young boy from O Block?
I don't think so. I get where you're going with that in terms of the aspirational piece and the capitalism and all that. But
even before we go any further, let me preface this with this.
Sure.
To be in the top 1% of Black income earners in America, all you need is $120,000. That's income. To be in the top 1% of Black wealth, all you need is $350,000 hard. That is today in 2021. Claire Huxtable and Heathcliff Huxtable lived in a $4 million home with 5 children in 1980 something.
Sure.
Right? So that's today. I don't know the data of 1980 something.
Absolutely.
But that's today. We could juxtapose the same conversation. And I would wonder, how are they different in essence of creating this kind of aspirational, materialistic, ideal version of what life is supposed to be? How does that shift in value? Because they have a more no, let me just that question. I'm gonna leave it right there.
I'll turn it to the panelists here in a second, but I don't think it's the same, because that wasn't really the message that I got in watching the show. Right now, certainly as an adult, I look back on it. Yeah, I recognize the value of that house they lived in. I know how big it would have been. Right, I understand what type of vehicles they were probably driving. I understand the value of those sweaters that Heathcliff wore and that type of thing, but that wasn't necessarily the messaging that I was getting from that show. I was just about a black family and what was going on inside the house. Yeah, we knew she was a lawyer. Yeah, we knew he was a doctor, but it wasn't like, yo, look at the car we drive, look at the jewelry we wear, look at the house we live in. That wasn't the message that I got from the show specifically. So that's why I think it wasn't about this aspiration to capital.
Now, just because you said that,
sure,
you forced my hand to ask another question. Right?
This is what he always does. When I shut down one of his arguments, he has to come with
another. He has another.
But that was really shut down my argument, though. But you really didn't shut down my argument, right? And that's what and again, I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate. Sure. I want you all to understand. I wholeheartedly agree with you about the damaging messages and some of the hip hop that we listen to. I fully agree, right? But I'm playing devil's advocate because I see it as a like Barbie said, it's a much larger, it's a systemic approach to a larger problem, right? At the core of see, all this talking made me lose my train of thought.
I win again.
No, you don't win. You just cheat.
But while you think of what your point was, what Herb was saying was exactly what I felt. It wasn't that somebody put this in front of us and said, look what you can be and look how much money they have. Look what they drive. Look what they do. I saw it as a nice refresh, no different than the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Were we supposed to think that, they were saying, oh, you only arrive if you can live in this house and have a butler and all this kind of stuff? I looked at programs like the Cosby and Fresh Prince as just messages of absolutely. We are in the projects like the Jeffersons, but we also live in a brownstone in Manhattan, and it's showing a spectrum of how we live. And I actually appreciated it because I said we don't have to appear in those roles that are typical for us.
I also think it's important to always keep the value part of the conversation front and center. So one of the things that I appreciated about the Cosby Show was that they weren't using their money to promote the trinkets of white value systems, right? Pooh Shiesty, the rappers say Gucci belts and, if I spend all the money that the rappers sent, we just make more white people rich. But I saw black art. They sent their kids to black colleges. They weren't talking to Harvards and Stanfords. They were using their resources. It also mattered how they got the money too. Like if he was a doctor doing plastic surgery, right, it would have mattered different. If she was a lawyer for corporate America, we never knew what kind of law she was. But if she was doing some civil rights activism kind of law, like it makes a difference. How we make the money makes a difference. And I think it's important.
At home all the time. I don't think they did nothing in all actuality.
But all of it matters. So what I hear from the rappers is making money by any means necessary, regardless of what kind of carnage you create. It's worth it. I think it's the same thread that allows capitalism to possess us and become projects and pawns of dominance and white pathology to support their systems, even if we get in some comforts by the money that we get. But it just props them up more and more. I think it's the same exact spirit that got us here in the first place. A lot of people made money when the capital product was us. And they made deals. They didn't come in and kidnap us in the middle of the night. They went in there and negotiated for capital, for trinkets, for beads, for ammunition. And that's how we got here. And that same spirit allows a so-called drug dealer, or whether it's a pharmacist or whether it's dope, to say the money is worth it despite all the families that I'm going to disrupt. If we don't get at the value of this and don't disconnect the resources from the capital, we're going to continue to just make, our enemy richer, more powerful, and we're going to keep suffering from it. So that part is important to me. So the rappers ain't doing that. They're not talking about the values. They're not talking about where to spend the money. If money ain't a problem, if you saying stack that cheese and then give it to Cassie for the Black Mall, that's a different message to me. Sure. I don't ever hear none of that. I don't hear none of that. They say, make it, destroy as many people as you can,
and
call
give
them
it
your
right back.
ops, and then get that money right back to white people. That's not a message that I can support.
Brother, where you at now?
Yeah, and they're lawyers too. I mean, one of the questions we ask a lot, they just trying to make money. And one of our responses is all the time, slavery was profitable. They made money off slavery. So just because they're trying to make money.
The slaves didn't know.
Yeah. But
that changes the conversation. You can't just laugh that off. That changes the conversation.
What you saying?
The slaves didn't profit off slavery.
The slaves, no, this doesn't change the conversation. You're just saying they're trying to make money. So the Europeans were trying to make money. It don't matter if people are trying to make money is the only thing they're saying. Those are people who are trying to make money, who are making these rap songs like that. But I want to mention culture. There's the third album from the Migos. The third album just came out, Culture 3. Mm-hmm. The album they had called Culture contained probably the song that covered everything, a song that stayed number one from, I think, January 2017 until April 2017, longer than any song from Michael Jackson or Prince.
Was that Bad and Bougie?
You know it was Bad and Bougie. That covered the materialism, covered the alcohol abuse, the drug slang, and the killing people, the disrespect. It covered the whole gamut. You always see this picture, these two white dudes. I think one of them is not Oveen. I can't think of his name. Larry Cohen, I think, and a couple other white dudes sitting there, standing up there with the Migos in front of them. And they come out with an album called Culture. And then another song, an album called Culture, when one of the lines is, I'm going to run up in your house with the shotty and your mama might be at home. And, a lot of times we say conflict resolution in these songs. There wasn't even no conflict in that song.
Right.
I'm run up in your house and your mama might be at home with my gun. And this is, again, always on the radio. So the culture is everything. It's all of that. And what we deal with it more so is with this music. And the music covers it all. Because I drive from Gary to Wisconsin one day to work recently, and I'm looking at all the work on the highway, leaving Indiana, going into Chicago, coming back. Sure. I saw one black person, one African working. This is through downtown, through the Dan Ryan, up to Milwaukee and back. One African all throughout. And if the music is telling us to stay high and stay drunk, if I get drunk at night, I'm not going to work in the morning. If I'm high, so this is all connected. This is all connected. And what they're doing is so disrespectful to our women. Our women are treated like crap. There was a statistic that said at the turn of the century that 30-some% of black women in their 30s had never been married. And I didn't believe it at first. And I started looking around. Sisters I knew, I said, wow. Now they say it's around 50% of black women, I don't matter what age, have never been married. Well, who gonna marry them? Why would I marry a black woman when I've been told them H's ain't loyal all the time? Or ain't nothing to cut that B off? Or I will never wife her. I will only one night her because a woman are full of lies. I just F them and pass them to my guys. This is bombarded. And even the baby on the song he got right now, he says that she do whatever I say. I piss in the cup and call it lemonade. I heard that this morning on the radio. This stuff has got to stop. Anyway. I'm sorry. I know I keep going back to that.
No, it's cool. I had some responses to it, but I don't want to go back down that road either. So, I agree with you 100%.
The Cardi lines.
Yeah, the Cardi lines,
Meg the Stallion lines.
Meg the Stallion. Yeah, it's not just the guys rappers. It's the women rappers as well.
It is the culture.
But the only thing I was gonna say was about Bad and Bougie being number one for 2 years or whatever it was. Is that only because they played on the radio all the time, or is that because that is the frequency that we're tuned into? You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want, again, like Obari said earlier, it continues to be this chicken and egg thing, and I don't really want to keep doing that. But I feel you wholeheartedly. I really, really do. But supply and demand is a real thing, right? And if nobody's demanding this, I'm not sure that anybody will be supplying it.
The thing that's important about the chicken egg for me, oh, my bad, Baba Crawford speaking.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing about it, because when we talk about whether it's how much they play it. So in January, at the end of January 2016, we had around 800 people murdered in Chicago. I forgot how many people were shot. But at the end of January, I was listening to GCI's top 11, I believe it was. And 5 songs in that top 11 said this statement: "If Young Metro don't trust you." Y'all know the answer to that, right?
I'm gonna shoot you.
5 of the top 11 songs said, "If Young Metro don't trust you, I'm gonna shoot you." This is 1 month after we had 800 people murdered, and this is what they're doing. This stuff is done on purpose. They do that stuff on purpose. They know exactly what they're doing. We met with them. We talked to them. They don't deny it. But when we asked Mascherano, who's their leader over there, how can you as a white man play all this song calling black women B's and H's? He doesn't say, well, you're right, maybe we shouldn't be doing that, or he answers right away. Oh, they consider me black around here. They consider him black around here, like that gives them an excuse to do that. So they know exactly what they're doing, bro. And they need to stop. And we as African people need to make them stop. They're not gonna stop on their own. We gotta make them. We gotta stop tolerating it, like y'all said. We gotta stop tolerating it, and we gotta stop tolerating it.
100%.
I just want to say something about the chicken egg part. I mean, I think it's important. I mean, we do get wrapped around on this idea, like what's more influential, the frequencies, the art imitating, like what's, what comes first. But to disrupt that cycle of influence, I think it's important to add this layer of maturity, of developmental responsibility. And we adults right now. So now what I think is most important is that what is our responsibility as adults to protect the children? And it's our responsibility to shape the frequency and the identity and the vibrations and the culture of the children. And so we have to say, nah, young bro, that's not okay. That's my job as an adult man. That's my job as a father, to teach my children how they are influencing each other, how they are being shaped by the community. And I get to say in my house, no, we don't do that. Like, I know there's a frequency out there, there's the capitalism. Everybody else, you can turn the TV on and you see the McDonald's is trying to target you. And I talk to my son just like this. They got the toys from the new movie. They got clowns in there. They got playground in there. They're trying to get your attention to get you to come beg me to buy you the thing. And I'm telling you, this is poison. That's my job, to teach the culture and protect my children, and within themselves. They 9 and 5 right now. I stop my 9-year-old all the time, and I'll be like, hey, what you just said, you just heard your little brother repeat, right? He didn't realize it. It didn't occur to him that he just said, I'm afraid of the dark. And then he heard his little brother say, I'm also afraid of the dark. I get to teach a 9-year-old, you are influencing your little brother by the things you say. Once he becomes aware of that, he's like, okay, I see that. I'm not going to do that no more.
Sure.
That's an internal, like an inherent genius that they have, that we influence each other. And our job as men, as women, as adults.
Unless he can get rich for saying I'm scared of the dark, then it's like, fuck what my little brother heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that.
And so
right.
That's why I'm saying we have to change what it is that we're aspiring to, right? If we're aspiring to the money, and then they say, well, you can get money for saying she's a B, she's a H, kill that nigga. Like, if you can get if that's what they're going to pay you for, right? Mm-hmm. Then we're going to continue to do that until we change our value set, until our value set becomes, it's more important what I call this sister or how I feel about this brother than what my bank account is going to say.
Right.
We're going to continue to call them whatever
I
pays
think we
me.
can connect that to the system.
Damn.
Dang, so
I hate that we lost Obari because he brought up an idea for me.
I'm sure he'll pop back in, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure he will too. But we talk about this concept of zero grade reliance. When Uncle Walt comes on the show, we talk about this concept of zero grade reliance. Now, for me, the umbrella conversation to this argument is that America's a white supremacist society.
You might as well come on with the Neely Fuller quote, bro.
And we fully adapted it. Right. And the quote that Neely Fuller says, until you fully understand white supremacy, what it is and how it operates, everything that you think you understand will only confuse you. Right. And I think we're operating under that confusion. Right. So in a lot of ways, like, we don't aspire to whiteness, but we aspire to capital, and they own all the capital. So by the very essence of them owning all the capital, we aspire to whiteness. It just is what it is. Right. So part of what Obari brought up in the statement that he was making is that someone in the comments mentioned a minute ago, when we was talking about the Cosby Show, they was like, I'm a big fan of the Jeffersons. And he was like, the reason I was a big fan of the Jeffersons, because what the Jeffersons really showed was a wholesome black family operating in love. Outside of anything else, there was no money. We in the projects, everybody's poor, but everybody loves each other.
No, right? Wait, the Jeffersons weren't poor now, because she mentioned it earlier. The Jeffersons were like living up.
Yeah, now they moved on up to the east side.
I'm sorry. I used the wrong, not the Jeffersons. Good times,
right?
I'm sorry, that was on me. Yeah. I didn't mean the Jeffersons. I meant Good Times. But they say it was a wholesome show because it was a concept of just love in general, and that's the entirety of my argument, right? In order to raise the frequency, we got to raise the frequency and the vibration through love. Right. So often, and this also kind of goes back to why I make the argument that this rap argument is low hanging fruit. We put all the responsibility on the youth of our community. Now, the youth of our community are fully tapped into this white materialistic paradigm. because that's where they're finding value. Because everybody else in their life obviously abandoned them for something else of value. Love could not be the anchoring in which they were anchored in, or that stuff wouldn't mean as much to them. It just wouldn't.
I think that most people would. I think if you took a poll, I think most people would tell you they'd rather be George than James. You know what I mean?
But what I'm saying is this is the normalcy of the paradigm in general, right? Think about how many colloquialisms we just have in our community, right? Romance without finance is a damn nuisance.
Yeah.
Well, you can't love me because I'm poor. We just excuse the Cardi rhyme.
What have you done for me lately?
What have you done for me lately? We just excuse the Cardi rhyme. Broke boys don't deserve no PUSSY. This is on the radio too. So Kwaba and I may mention all of the degrading messages the brothers send out, but that's a woman speaking in the same manner because we're all on the same frequency. Because we've replaced the value of God and family with the value of capital and materialism.
And quite frankly, even in good times, that's what we were seeing, right? Now, they hadn't gotten to any, discernible amount of wealth, but that is what they were striving towards as well, right? Now, however much that apartment they lived in the projects was whatever, but I'm saying instead of James and Florida going out, breaking their back every single day, I imagine that they could have found some business to start themselves, right? They could have partnered with community members and had a community garden and been able to feed themselves at the same level they were eating at or better, right? In the first place, and had a business that would at least pay them enough to be able to provide for that particular apartment they were living in. I'm saying if we are not so aspirational, then we can just do our things on our own level. But because we are so aspirational, it's like it's always trying to get to the deluxe apartment in the sky. And it's like, no, it's cool right in here where we at. We all right. We love each other and we cool. And if we don't go out there and break our back for somebody else, then we can do it in a way that's not so damn stressful. James came home pissed off and stressed every damn day.
I think the deluxe apartment in the sky is always at our detriment, personally, right? I think under the Obama administration, the black community lost more wealth than ever before, but we praise Obama like never before. That's the reality. Yeah. So even if you aspire to be president, all you're going to do is be operating a system that is built for our detriment. But we tell our kids to aspire to that version. So when I say, I'm with Obari 100%, his whole last statement before he cut off, I'm with him. Yeah. Right. He was like, we got to fix that. No, we got to say no. We got to set some standards. I think, but in setting those standards, we have to be brutally honest and direct. Brutally honest and direct. And I think oftentimes the reason we fail in being brutally honest and direct is because the vast majority of us don't even have the information. Getting back to the Neely Fuller quote, until you fully understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything you think you understand will only confuse you. So everything that we aspire to, everything that we glorify,
sure,
essentially feeds this system. It essentially feeds the system.
Sure.
So Obama becomes the president, arguably the greatest position you could have in regards to aspiration, right? Mm-hmm. But we can make a bunch of arguments that his presidency was detrimental to our community.
Yeah, I think the information would tell you that, but I think the emotional investment would prevent most people from going to that space in terms of that particular argument. Like, no, the symbolism. We love symbols, right? We are all about symbolism, and it's chucks and pearls, and it's she's an AKA. That lady has been a tyrant on our community, right? And they ran this whole campaign about. I don't want to have this political conversation. Let me not do that, right? Because I go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, let me bring the panelists back in. I don't know if Brother Kwabena has something to say, but I'm also interested in hearing what Sheila Brown, your perspective in terms of these aspirations. When we talk about specifically, you look at shows like Good Times or shows like The Jeffersons.
Well, the one person commented that. They loved the Good Times and so forth, and so did I. So I was not equating them to, they're poor, we shouldn't aspire to be them. I agree with that person wholeheartedly that that's what we were saying. But my point in bringing up the others is we need to see the full spectrum if we want to understand. Not all of us, because some of us can do our own research. Some of us have our families that tell us what we can aspire to and so forth, but some others just don't have it. And sometimes it takes them seeing someone else to pique their interest and have them be involved in it. But I happen to like seeing all spectrums of it. I happen to like seeing something where I can resonate with them, you know, and say, yep, that's how I grew up. That's how I felt. That's how my mom acted, had to be in the house for the street lights, you know, all this kind of stuff. We all like to see some of the commonalities because that's at our core. But I also love to see, you know, Eric LaSalle as the doctor on ER, you know, because then it says, well, maybe that isn't so hard, you know. Now, I would never be able to do it. There's a difference between capability and desire. I would be capable of doing it. I don't desire doing all of that.
But there's value in the symbolism.
But I like seeing all aspects of it. I don't like there to be a mass concentration on the negativity. I'd like to see some other things, but that's why I pointed out earlier that now is the time, and I don't know about other industries, but I know about this one. Creativity and being folks in the creative realm is worth gold now, because now we're talking about a gazillion options out there for programming. Everybody has their streaming services, so now content is king. And now we should be trying to, we don't like the stories that are being told, write our own stories. I'm not perpetrating saying it's going to be easy to get it out there, because people like to go for what they know. Absolutely. But now, as a time like no other, people are listening a little bit more than they were listening before. And they understand that when we all have I don't even know how people make money on television commercials anymore, between DVR and going through them and watching everything on our phone and streaming things, watching it when we want to watch it. Absolutely. And stuff like that. You know, now people have to give people what they want. When they see there's more content and more viewers and demand for certain content, they'll do it. You better believe Marvel is doing a Black Panther 2. You know, when you show them that, you didn't think a Black movie would pull a cross section of audiences into the theater, but not only did it did it all around the world and became one of the top selling Marvel movies. Okay, now they're listening a bit more. So I think now is the time for us to really say, we don't like it, let's work to change it.
Understood. Brother Kwame, I want to bring you in here, but before I do, I just want to read a quick comment from Adrienne Anderson. I kind of just lost it, but I got the gist of it. And she was really saying, are we equating poverty to the authentic Black experience? Like, do we have to be, you know, poor to be considered the genuine article of Blackness, right? And I that's not what I'm saying, right? I think that we do need to have resources, right? I think we do need to be able to get to resources. I'm talking about our relationship with those resources, how we allow the pursuit of those resources to impact and influence our behavior, our decision making, and our interaction with one another. And so, no, I'm not saying that we all need to be poor all the time. And I personally think that it has been to our detriment how tied we are to our ability to persevere and how resilient we are. I'm very, very proud of our ability to persevere. I'm very, very proud of how resilient we are. I think that any other group of people experiencing what we've experienced as Black people here in this country would have perished from this land a long time ago, right? I'm very, very proud of that. That being said, I do think we need to move away from, you know, this kind of pride in the struggle. I'm sick of struggling, right? It's time for us to prosper, right? So absolutely not am I saying that, you know, our Blackness has to be tied to some sense of poverty. I'm saying how we interact, how we relate to the money, and the things that we're willing to do to go about getting it, that needs to shift. But Brother Kwame, now you've been trying to jump in here for a bit.
I just, like the sister just said, the full spectrum, how it's shown on these TV shows, I think is kind of interesting. My favorite, anybody who knows me, they tell me to shut up, quoting Sanford and Son all the time. That's my favorite. You know, because Fred was, you know, to me, I think it's all-time funniest TV show.
You know, I'm glad you made that point, because that's really kind of a parallel to what I was trying to say earlier about Good Times, right? I don't feel like Sanford and Son had a great deal more financial resources than the Evans family, really, right? But they worked for themselves, right? And so they were a little bit happier. They weren't always so stressed out. They worked for themselves, and they lived in rundown establishment, a place of dwelling as well, but they were happy and it was joyful and it was love in there too. And I think that there's value in doing those things for yourself as opposed to breaking your back for somebody else.
I want to get to Kwabena too, but I saw that question in the comments, right?
Mhm.
And I'd ask, is the wealth in things make you rich, or does a wealth in love make you wealthy?
Mm.
That's a clip.
Right? And there is where the conversation lies for me. That is the definitive of how we come to an answer. I didn't grow up in a wealthy community, wealthy household. We didn't have none of those things.
Sure.
But I grew up in a wealth of love in my community and within my household. So out of that, you grow something different, right? We all know of wealthy families of any ethnic group
that are dysfunctional as hell.
Dysfunctional as hell.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we define wealth? I.e., changing the thought process and the frequency. How do we define wealth? As a populace, if we just understand the relationship to black people in America, there's been one generation of people, one group, the baby boomers, that had access to American wealth. That's it. None before it, and truthfully, none after. So the aspirational idea, i.e. the Cosby Show too, because it sets it up for that aspirational idea that this is where the value set comes in. I think that is part of what ruins us, in my opinion. That is not the definitive, right? Wealth grows out of community. Community does not grow wealth. It does not work that way. So we have this rugged individualistic idea, i.e. this Western American idea on life, and then wonder why we have the kind of communities we have.
Man, look, it's like I think about, like, again, where I live in Gary, this place is struggling. It's struggling. And, you know, we talk about businesses like Fred, they had their junk business and they got the Sanford Arms. We left work one day several years ago to go to a city, some sort of meeting, hearing. These Arabs were trying to put another liquor store into what was our biggest fruit stand in the community. Mm-hmm. And there was a Jewish guy who owned the land. So it was Arabs and Jews teaming up against Africans to put another liquor store. So we stopped them. We stopped them at that planning meeting. We got the city council to vote against it. About a month later, they came back and reversed their decision, saying that board wasn't supposed to do that. So here comes this liquor store, economy liquor number 2 now. Now we have 14 of these economy liquors in Gary, where our unemployment rate is about 57% for black men. When you see, again, none of us working, we see so many dilapidated conditions, our schools are closing or almost closed, and we got 14 of this, you know, of their liquor store community. So, man, and then again, we go back to the music. It's telling us to stay high and drunk all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's in hot rotation. You know, one of the also we asked the children or the youth when we present on this music, name us 3 slow jams or love songs that you heard like in the last year or 2 years, and they can't do it. Actually, a lot of times they start going back to the songs that their parents listened to or the old school stuff, and we gotta stop listening to all, because they love the music, but they don't get it. They don't get it because they purposely don't want them to have no love music. That love, you know, it's more so war in the songs they play.
Agreed. I think that anytime you're talking about money, right? I don't think anybody's gonna deliberately make a failing investment, right? So you talk about these liquor stores coming in, and they coming in because they know that liquor will sell in our communities, right? And I think that we gonna have to change that. Like, we have to change how we, you know, shop and how we go about supporting these types of establishments that we don't want in our communities. I think that everybody comes into our community and gets rich, but they don't put those resources back into our community. Those resources leave our community as soon as that store is closed. And I think that until we like, hey, either put something back or get the hell out, then they'll continue to come in, because y'all had the liquor store shut down, and then I don't know for sure, but I would say that they greased the right palms, and then the vote changed, right?
That's exactly
and so
what happened.
They made another financial investment because they say, hey, we willing to pay the decision makers to say that we can do this, because what do we know? That as soon as our doors open, we're gonna sell everything on these shelves, right? And I think that, again, we have been complicit in our own demise in many ways. We are not the cause of it, And I'm always talking about trying to get to the cause of things more so than treating the symptoms. I think we often talk about the symptoms, whether that's violence, poverty, or whatever it is. I think that until we get to the real cause of these things, we continue to treat the symptoms as much as we want. I say all the time that if my nose is running, you could pass me Kleenex until I blow my nose clean off my face. But until I treat that virus, my nose will continue to run. And so I think that, in that way, though, we have been complicit in our own demise. Again, not the cause, but complicit in many, many ways. And we have to stop being complicit, and then we can get to the root cause that would ultimately kind of shut down all of it.
So with that, I'd ask the question, with the power that the Black community has, how do we change the narrative of our young people being inadequately progressive in education, career, and life?
I think what Herb just said is how we start to deal with it. We have to start to demand more. We have to start to I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of like, do you protest? Do you do this and all this kind of stuff? Because protesting, if you're not going to be there when they're making decisions, mean nothing. So I believe that we have to start putting accountability on people. We have to start understanding that elections mean something, that we're electing people to control the rules about how you go to jail or the rules about, how you can do certain things. So I think that we need to just step back and start to better understand the power that we have. A lot of times we make ourselves those victims. You asked the question too of, is it love or is it capital? I want both. I mean, I don't think I'm capitalistic to want it. I don't want to struggle. I want to have better than my mother's generation and so forth. Sure. I want to have that without giving away myself. But I demand that when I get in a room, I'm able to change that. I tell people how former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright once said, there's a special place in hell for women that don't help other women. So then I say, imagine the place reserved in hell for people of color who get into a position to help others and don't do that. So that's what I live by every day. And my thing is, you might not even want to be in there, but I'm pulling you in that room so that you get to make decisions, so that you understand how they're made, when they're made, and you have some influence on it. And until we start wanting to do what is going to be necessary to get ourselves at those tables, it's going to be hard to make a change, because you can't make a change from the outside in.
Sure. I often break down our community into three different segments of people, right? And I think that the first group for me is a group of people in the Black community that are aware that we have some problems and they are actively engaged in overcoming those problems. You have a second group of people who are aware that there are some problems, but for a myriad of reasons, one being hopelessness, they're aware, but they are unengaged. They feel hopeless to do anything about it. And then I think you have a third segment of our population that is sincerely ignorant. I don't mean that with any negative connotation at all. They just don't know. And I think that it becomes imperative for those amongst us who are aware and engaged to just get busy doing the work and make sure that it's all connected, right? And so if somebody feels like their area of work is education, then fine. Or if it's business, then fine. If it's music, then fine. All those things critically important, but tie them together in a way that will allow us to be to reach our optimum effectiveness. Because I think that all the systems of oppression that we're up against, they're very well organized. They're very well tied together, right? There's not a huge separation between, banking practices or loan practices and the justice system and the miseducation. All those things are tied together. And if we are going to be effective in combating those things, our efforts have to be just as unified. And so if we can get to that space, then I think that, we can be effective if that first group is willing to do that work and not be so, blaming and pointing the finger to say, they're not in the game. Well, there's nothing you can do about somebody that's not in the game, right? Nobody's ever watched a basketball game and blame the person on the bench for missing the last shot. Like they're not even in the game, right? Y'all on the court, y'all got to play. And then when they get in, they'll know what to do, right? And they're more likely to want to play for a team that has already put up some wins and has gained some momentum, right? And you can pull in that second group and say, okay, it's not as hopeless as I thought it was. Then they'll come in. And then once y'all together, then we can figure out how to go with the ignorant group. But I think that we spend a lot of time trying to figure out who's not in the game, as opposed to those of us who are just actually getting busy and getting the work done. And it's a lot of work to be done, and it's not easy. It's an arduous task, and sometimes it feels a lot easier just to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna find my little piece of comfort within this dysfunction. I'm gonna make my money. I'm gonna take care of me and mine. I'm gonna be done with that, right? But ultimately, that is not going to lead us to a healthy place as a collective. And if we seek to get there, then we got a lot of work to do. I think that we have what we need to be able to do it, right? We just got to actually go about getting to it. Go ahead, too.
FX Nozak here says there's a fourth group. B, you just moved. There's a fourth group of black people. Those who take the thing off of B, I can read it without that. There's a fourth group of black people who assist the oppressor, exploiter to oppress and destroy their own people. I just wanted to point that out. That out of the three groups, you missed one.
You know what? I agree. That group certainly does exist. And shout out to Brad. You try to he's doing the dope thing. Like you try to do it the hard way. Brad doing it the dope way. Anyway, I agree. That group certainly exists, and I think that going back to like revolution, we need to kill them. Okay,
but see,
like we need to kill those people.
I read that comment on purpose because I think that group can exist if we have an identity.
Agreed. That's what I'm saying. We kill those people.
It can't exist if we have an identity. It's just that simple. They'd never be in any position to be valuable. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. We're gonna say, hey, we're gonna start a revolution tonight, right? Who with it? We with it. Who ain't with it? Y'all not with it? What's the first thing we need to do? Kill them. Like that's who we need to do. So anyhow, I want to be able to wrap this up and get you guys out of here, but I want to give all of you all an opportunity for any parting words or last thoughts before we bring back TJ Crawford and maybe Commissioner Deere if he's still here. Dr. Barr, you want to go first?
Yeah, first, man, that basketball analogy is dope. I love that.
I'm smart sometimes on the weekends. What's
that's good. I'm gonna have to,
Barr, don't ever give him no credit like that, bro. Ever.
That's good. Sidelines, all that. That's good. I'm gonna play with that. Pardon word. I mean, I love the conversation. I think that question 2 was asking about what needs to happen. What can we do? I'm gonna stay on topic. Like I think that hip hop has a lot of power in being able to shift and move us towards this next level, because with all the different groups, but with the two that are ignorant and the two that are hopeless, I have found that we can teach them. Like it's nothing but just giving information and finding safe spaces to be like, no, this is what happened to us. And I hear it over and over again. Young people are like, oh man, I didn't even know that. Nobody told me that before. That ain't no white people's fault. That ain't nobody's fault but me not having found smart enough ways to use whatever resources we got to tell them the truth. And even the folks that are hopeless, to tell them, I feel you on that. I get that. But these are some things that we have done that we've accomplished to give information. And there's no better way to do that than storytelling. There's no better way to do that than through melody and through rhythm and through poetry. And so hip hop has the power to do that I think that we need to encourage and empower and give young people to do. And I have in my again experience and found that if we take capital out of the equation, then they do that naturally. They tell honest stories. They talk about their real life. Like once they put on the money hat, then it turns into the machine. But like once they just use the artistry of it, those that are pure, they do exactly what we need them to do. I think the people will naturally do what we need them to do if we remove the barriers, if we remove the violence and the opposition and stop disinvesting in the communities. And I think that we've been talking a lot about what I think is really important, which is perspective shifting, which goes along with the information, so that we can add concepts of the value systems and the principles and like having integrity around capital and around resources, and making it so that wealth is connected to love, but also tangible things. I can desire to have an abundance and to live in prosperity and remove the trickery that capitalism has placed in my brain and trained me to think that can only happen through this one rigid format. I talked to young people. This was last week. I was in Austin High School, talking to some boys, talking about what we can do about the violence. And their solution was to give everybody a bunch of money. And if everybody rich, then we not struggling and fighting against money no more. And I posed the opposite. Like, what if we just do away with money? Like, what if money didn't exist? Like, just a thought exercise. Like, what if we just remembered that they made this whole thing up, printed paper out, put some enemies on it, and now we exchange it. Now we love it, and we fan it ourselves because we have let them make that powerful. But what we really want is the resources that it's connected to. We want to eat, we want to have fun, we want to have safety. We can create systems with that without having money involved at all. I can grow my own food. Like the planet gave us everything we need. I can have music, I can have joy, I can have relationships, I can have shelter, I can have everything I need if I created barter systems, if I traded, if I found some other ingenious, way to have those things and have an abundance of those things without competing against each other. Like we can figure that out if we just stopped letting them trick us into thinking that this is the only way. And if we heal, we got to do it their way. I think that we're smarter than that. And I think hip hop specifically can remind us of that. I got a son in 3rd grade. They using this vocabulary program every day. I'm hearing them do lessons where they rhyming, teaching about history and science, and like just using the art form for what it's supposed to be for, which is a teach, which is elevate, which is a shift perspectives. And we got to do that. We got to lean into it. Find those artists that are doing this, support them, protect them, give them platform. We all got our own social medias. We can't complain about the media no more. We are that. We just got to use it to our advantage and continue to promote what is good for us and have people gravitate to that. Like I think that people will see it, and if they see us winning, supporting each other, eating off of it, enjoying it, having fun, like
we're more likely to join in.
Whole new paradigm.
Dr. Obari Carmen, thank you so very, very much for taking the time, brother. We truly appreciate you. Tell the people where they can find you and keep up with you. Although I kind of see it in your handle right there.
Yeah, it's my IG handle. I'm on Facebook, website, drobaricarmen.com. Whatever it is, feel free to reach out. Look forward to connecting.
All right, my brother. Appreciate you. I want to go to Sheila Brown. But before I do, I want to read a comment really quickly from Ready Rock. It says, the solution of all this is removing self-hate. Being the Black oppressor is not goals. Having more than less wealthy Black people isn't winning. We're Black and will be treated as such, regardless of class, upbringing, zip code, etc. I.e., if we all do a little, we could get a lot done. Very, very well said, per usual, Ready Rock. Sheila Brown, any closing remarks from you?
I'm just going to step on what Ready Rock said. I'm just going to stay in my space and do my little bit and try to create that change. Because as I said, my goal is to leave this place better than I found it. And after 30 years of being in entertainment, getting in a position to create change and to make real change is where I am right now. And that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Ms. Brown, we thank you so very, very much for taking the time. We truly appreciate all of your input on this conversation. Is there any social media or any place that people can keep up with your work?
Sure. I am Sheila R. Brown is my handle on all social media. And our website for the foundation is Cinecares Foundation, CINECARES Foundation.org. And that's at Cinespace Chicago Film Studios.
Thank you so very, very much. Brother Kwabena, closing remarks from you, sir?
Yeah, we have to get back control of our culture. We have some issues happening with the FCC where we want the European-owned radio stations that's been targeting African children and youth with messages of destruction, telling us to kill each other. We want them out of Chicago area. We want to be able to control our own music and our own culture that's broadcast to our children. So after our piece we did yesterday, where we indicted pretty much the music industry, therefore we're asking the people this Juneteenth weekend to stay out of McDonald's. We know that the sponsors, they finance these radio stations. Like I think somebody mentioned, sister mentioned about the commercials. That's how they make their money. So we're saying we want them to stay out of McDonald's. I want to mention a few artists who are still making good music despite Ciroc, Big Crit, Young Con, The Don, Common, Lauryn Hill, Nas, I Am Most Murad, Paris, Rhapsody, Dead Prayers, D1, Black Star, Mos Def, Yassine Bey and Talib Kweli, Lupe, J-Live, just Public Enemy, Arrested Development, we mentioned Speech earlier, and so many more who continue to make this good music. They need to get some love, and we need to support them in what they do because, again, they refuse to disrespect the people. We have to protect our children. They can't fend for themselves, and we have to protect our children.
Brother Kwabena, thank you so very, very much for taking the time. Thank you so much for your commitment to this important work. Hope you didn't take our perspective about it being low-hanging fruit as a disrespectful thing so much as anything else. Truly appreciate the work that you're doing and agree wholeheartedly on your perspective on it. Two, got to wrap it up, man. Before we do, I just want to announce to some people before we wrap this thing up. Philip Jackson.
I want to say check the Clear the Airways Project page. We have a web page.
Oh, yeah.
cleartheairwaysproject.org, and also can check us out on Facebook at Clear the Airways Project.
Okay.
Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate you, my brother, as always. I just want to say real quick that Philip Jackson, who has been a great friend and mentor to all of us, the late great Philip Jackson, founded the Black Star Project, passed away a couple of years ago. They're officially going to change 35th and King Drive. Is going to be honorarily known as Philip Jackson Parkway. That became official a couple of days ago. We're going to do something around that here coming up. I think actually Saturday at 10 a.m. Over there as well. But then there'll be a bigger thing later on. But Philip Jackson has been very, very influential to many people that are hearing this discussion, but also in the comments as well. So I just wanted to announce that and say congratulations to Philip Jackson. A very, very, very job well done, sir. Race well run.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with you. I second that around Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
But I guess as a closing remark, all I would say, man, is that whether you in the projects or the penthouse, none of that supersedes love, right? In order for us to really build community and strong community ties, it starts in the house. I often make the analogy that the makeup of the man and the woman, the female and the male gender, is the truest representation of God that there is. So when we get back to family, we can then get back to community. And I think that's at the pinnacle of how we change and rectify all of the ills in our community, right? Love is the anchor, not capital, not material. Your J's don't matter as much as, someone loving you does.
Agree wholeheartedly, my brother. Always a pleasure. Thank you all so very, very much for choosing to tune in to this edition of I Said What I Said. Absolutely thrilled to be joined by a wonderful, wonderful panel. Huge shout out again to TJ Crawford, to Commissioner Deere as well. Looking forward to everything else that Black Culture Week has to bring, and certainly looking forward to Juneteenth this Saturday here. Make sure you guys stay in tune. Follow the Black Culture Week. Is that the page? Is that the Facebook page? Is actually called the Black Culture Week Facebook page? I think it is. Black Culture Week is the Facebook page. Make sure you all follow that page for more updates and information for everything that'll be coming up throughout the week, as well as on Saturday. Again, thank you all so very, very much. It was an absolute honor and a pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon. For Tucson Warner and for our brother Brian Gorman doing all of the hard work behind the scenes, my name is Herb Howard. We'll see you guys Wednesday at 1 p.m. right back here on the I Said What I Said page. Until then, y'all be good to each other. Peace.
Slow.